Appreciate that. We're streaming live on YouTube now. I see. That's good. Councilmember Del Chapo, was there anything going on Daniel Island this weekend?
Just, you know, everyone's trying to figure out what to do with their kids. Now they don't even have homeschooling to do with their children anymore. So it's you know, clamoring to sign up to go to the pool.
Oh, it's amazing, isn't it?
I know.
All right. Well, I got a minute after. We think all council members are with us.
I think we're still waiting on council members Mitchell, Waring. I'm trying to see if there's anyone else that we are missing.
There's Waring.
And Councilmember Waring is signing on now.
Okay, good.
I think the only council member not signed on is Councilmember Mitchell.
Okay, we'll give him another minute to see if he arrives. That would be good. Mark, are you going to be making the little presentation today regarding our COVID-19 update?
I can. Is there anything else you wanted me to talk about?
No, I don't. That's what's on the agenda. Shannon just let me know that he didn't know that he would be able to join us today.
Right. Yeah, I didn't know if you wanted to talk about moving to phase 2 or not.
Yeah, I mean, that's related to it.
Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
cool.
I'm ready.
That'd be good. All right, so Madam Clerk, could you call the roll? I'd like to call this May 26th meeting of City Council of Charleston to order.
Councilwoman Del Chapo.
Here.
Councilmember Shealy.
Here.
Councilmember Saccharin.
Here.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Yeah.
Okay, Councilmember Brady.
Present.
Councilmember Gregory.
Here.
Councilmember Waring. Councilmember Seekings.
Here.
Councilmember Shade. Councilmember Shade.
He's here.
Okay, Councilmember Griffin.
Here.
Councilmember Appel.
Here.
Councilwoman Jackson.
Here.
Mayor Tecklenburg.
Here.
Councilmember Waring.
He's
Oh, I'm
here.
here. I'm here.
He's here. Now, y'all,
I was muted. That's
Okay.
so if y'all would like, anyone would like to join, Councilmember Appel will lead us in an invocation for a moment of silence and then the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is still right behind me over here.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm actually going to read the English version of a Jewish prayer for the ill. It's called the Misha Bharath prayer. I'm not going to go through it in Hebrew. I'll just read it in English. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those who are ill. May the blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit. And let us say, Amen.
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 Thank y'all.
You want to lead us off? I pledge allegiance
Allegiance
to the flag
Of
of the United States of America
And
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And I hope everyone had a happy Memorial Day. I know things are very different this year. We normally have a community band concert at Marion Square on Memorial Day, joined by the Columbia Community Band. Been running for a number of years, and in fact, Mayor Steve Benjamin from Columbia had agreed to meet me this year for the concert. This is, of course, before the COVID-19, and we're going to do that next year. But we did have a very small gathering at White Point Gardens yesterday with some buglers who played taps, and we gave memory to those men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom and for our country. So the real meaning of Memorial Day was noted in the city of Charleston, and I know across our country. So without further ado, we're going to move to a section, our public hearings. We haven't actually been doing this since we've been meeting virtually. So this is our first time up. And what I'd like to ask Christopher Morgan to present each item, and then I'll ask either Jennifer or Vanessa to share if any citizens send us any comments of any kind on each item as we go, and then we'll take each matter up. So number one, can I turn it over to you, Mr. Morgan?
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to go to a screen share to show you the documents that we normally see in these types of situations. So let's see if we can get to this. Oop, now I'm not finding it. Let's see. Here we go. Okay. Everybody see this?
Yep.
We doing okay? Okay.
Seal the city of Charleston.
There we go. That's right. We should be shifting to the next one. Here we go. Okay. So this is 220 Nassau Street. It's adjacent to Meeting Street Manor and Cooper River Courts on the peninsula. This is a property that would be purchased by the Humanities Foundation for affordable housing. They are requesting a rezoning from DR2 to our mixed-use workforce housing, MU1 workforce housing. It went to Planning Commission in February and received an 8-0 approval, recommendation for approval. We'll show you a few slides of the property. It is in an area that is more of a neighborhood recommendation called urban in our Century 5 city plan, but our staff feels that there's some kind of extenuating circumstances with the reuse of the school that justify this rezoning. Here is an image of the property, and I'm sure you all are very familiar with these buildings, so I'll just zip through these quickly. There is a axiometric of the building. Here's a street view of the building. Here are some of the street surrounding views of the buildings. And we have, that's the cafeteria addition to the rear of the building. This is from the northwest corner. Again, this is a rezoning that would enable affordable housing to be built on the site. And staff has been very much in favor. And of course, the Planning Commission has recommended approval. And I will end the screen share here for your comments. So let's see how I go to my end screen share.
All right.
Oops.
So Vanessa or Jennifer, are we aware of any public comments that have been made on this matter?
This is Jennifer. There is one citizen who would like to speak. Her name is Tracy Duran. And Tracy McKee, if you could help me unmute her.
She should be unmuted now.
Okay.
Am I unmuted? Can you hear me?
Welcome and thank you for your leadership on this project. You've got the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Tecklenburg and council members. I am here to answer any questions, and if there was any comment from the public to address any concerns that come up, I certainly don't have anything other to say than we appreciate your support, and we look forward to getting started on this property. And thank you so much.
Well, I would say, Tracy, that we are the ones who are thanking you for the leadership you've shown in pulling all the partners together, including us, to make this a reality to convert this property to affordable housing, I think is wonderful for our city. Councilmember Mitchell, it's your district.
Yes, this is the district I represent, Mr. Mayor, and that school, as you know, was sitting idle for a long time. And I spoke with Tracy about it and also let her know that we were trying to obtain it, but didn't go through with what we wanted to do with it. And so she was giving me some information what was the plan for the building. So I agree with it. And I think it's going to be a very good attraction for that particular area once it's completed, and bring more people into that area so far as affordable housing in that area for seniors and others. So I'll make a motion that we approve that.
Second.
And I was also asked that someone get in touch with Ms. Gamble, who's the neighborhood president for the East Side, just to inform her that this was approved and this is going forward with affordable housing for seniors and others.
Perfect. Councilmember Jackson.
Yeah.
Tracy, would you like to respond?
Yes, I just wanted to say that we have met with Ms. Gamble and the leadership of the neighborhood association, and we were scheduled to be at a neighborhood meeting, but then COVID-19 happened.
Right.
So we will circle back up with her and make sure that we get on the agenda as soon as they have a meeting.
Yeah, just call and inform her that it was approved, and my recommendation that we approve it. So, I'll take everything that's coming.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Jackson, and then Waring.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And it's really great to have you online with us, Ms. Duran. I didn't, unless I was missing it, I don't think during Mr. Morgan's presentation, he used the school name, the Archer School. And I think that probably is what a lot of the community citizens know this property by, that long-standing name as a public school. That when the board of directors for the Charleston Redevelopment Corporation was trying their best to make some sort of public-private partnership out of this enterprise, there was a lot of history shared by people who came out to I think it was either the Planning Commission or the DRB, I can't remember which of the commission meetings I sat and listened to people comment about the plans that were going forward at that point in time. But it was clear to me as a newcomer to Charleston that building in particular and the memories that it has for the people that grew up here and have it as part of their history bank for their own family, that we really needed to save that building. And so the fact that and I did affordable housing for 15 years in DC areas, as some of you know, and we always talked about it as the lasagna to finding the way to make a deal like that work. So I feel like reading in the paper today, all the different sources that come into the deal and make this work, it truly is probably the most finely layered lasagna that I've heard anybody accomplish since I've been here in the last 5 or 6 years. So thank you very much. And I really hope each one of those pieces comes together.
Thank you. Councilmember Waring.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Doran, can you, well, number one, thank you for taking on this challenge because it's something we all need. Can you tell us the number of units that you envision having there? And I have a second.
Right now, we're projecting to have 88 apartments there.
That's great.
There'll be, some in the old structure and some in some new construction on 2 sides of the property.
Okay, that's wonderful. The second question is, were you able to get some funding or participation from the LDC? And Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
maybe our team, did we get some of the funds, Mr. Mayor, that you worked out with SCDOT to get hopefully transferred over to a project like this? Was that part of it? So I cut you off, Ms. Doran. Could you answer the part about the LDC?
Yes, we were able to work with the LDC, and we just closed last Friday on a $600,000 bridge and pre-development loan that will be paid off when we close the construction loan later this year or early next. And so that will help us fill the gap to close the property. The city has pledged $4 million. We hope to close the property. We're projecting the first to second week in June, and then the money from LDC will bridge the gap, pay closing costs, and then help Humanities with the pre-development money that we've already been putting up. It helps us replenish that. So we were very excited, and they were very good to work with, and we're very appreciative that LDC stepped up and did that.
And thank you for sharing that, because, you know, this collaboration of what's needed to be put together to create affordable housing, in particular 80 units of affordable housing on the peninsula in one of the highest real estate markets in the country. I mean, it's just wonderful that the synergies came together to put this together, Mr. Mayor.
And I'd also like to add that the City of Charleston Housing Authority has agreed to issue the bonds for the property because the State Housing Authority had shut their window due to COVID-19.
Wow.
We had some time frames we had to meet, and we had a board meeting. Don had a board meeting last week, and they voted to move forward to provide the inducement letter for the bonds and to issue the bonds. So that was also a huge step and another collaboration that, you know, I truly believe it takes a village. And in this case, you know, the village has stepped up, and that's what it's going to take to have this development come together.
Well, thanks for being on the call and sharing those extra attributes of how this transaction came together. Or it would have just gone through, hopefully, as automatic. And this one isn't automatic, and we learn from each one, hopefully, to build for the next one. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor.
And I would like to answer your other question about the $1 million from SCDOT.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We have made that commitment of $4 million, but yes, 1 million of those 4 will be from, I'll take it back. We're getting reimbursed the $1 million from SCDOT based upon the contribution we made to Grace Homes.
Right.
But since we've already expended that cash, once we get the $1 million reimbursement back, we'll be able to use those funds to be part of our $4 million commitment to Tracy.
And thank you for that, Mr. Mayor. Those were mitigation funds years ago that some of the new council members may not be familiar with it. You did a heavy lift to get that back. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Ms. Doran.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? This is for second reading, actually. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. Now for third reading.
So moved. Second.
Second.
Have a motion, second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Tracy, thank you again very much. You're really, you and Humanities Foundation organization are wonderful to have taken this on and put all these complex pieces of the puzzle together to make this happen. God bless you.
Thank you very much for your support, Mayor, Council. Bye-bye.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. Yes,
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember.
I'd like to also thank Tracy for it. We spoke about it a couple of times on this same issue. And I'd like to thank her very much for taking this on. And really it's on the east side where it's really needed for housing. So I'm glad that she is taking this on, and it's going to be a beautiful attraction to that community and to have affordable housing there with whatever the other things we are doing with the Housing Authority, building the units and the Martin Park pool that's being renovated, and the South Carolina State University, the complex that they're doing there with the community center. So that'd be right in the attraction that people will be able to use or utilize all those things right in that particular area. So that will upgrade that particular area a whole lot. And
Absolutely.
I would thank you for taking that on.
Thanks for noting all those things coming together right there in the neighborhood. That's really terrific. Okay, back to you, Mr. Morgan, number 2.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, and we'll go back to the next. Okay, and we, let's see, scroll down. Oops. Oh, hold on. There we go. Let me scroll down. There we go. All right, here we are. This is on Ashley River Road. It does not have a designated address yet. It's immediately adjacent to I-526, and Councilman Shealy alerted us to some potential issues with this property in reference to the widening of I-526. And so I'm sure he may give some background on that, but I'll just go ahead and give the background of this coming forward to you in case there are people who are attending the meeting today who want to be heard on a public hearing. So this is a request to go from SR1 to limited business. It was heard by our planning commission in February and they recommended for approval. It is along Ashley River Road, just north of an apartment complex and an older laundromat facility that is, I believe, closed now. It's directly across from the intersection of Ashley Hall Plantation Road, which is here. I don't know if you all can see that cursor or not. And it is on the south side immediately of I-526. In our comprehensive plan, it is in a suburban designation, which would seem to say the existing zoning should be maintained. Here's an aerial image of the property, and you see how the property backs up to I-526. It is showing as a potential property that the SCDOT would like to acquire in reference to that widening. Here's a little bit different view of the same property. And so staff had recommended for the rezoning, planning commission had recommended for it, but again, we did not have that most recent information that the DOT has this as a potential acquisition, and Mr. Shealy may want to fill some more details in on that.
All right. Well, Mr. Shealy, do you want to go ahead and share that with us?
Yeah, I can. Jennifer, do you know if Miss Smith's on the line? I don't know, I didn't want to take her public comment time if she happens the owner of the property.
I have not received any requests from her to speak.
Okay. All right. Well, I knew because I had seen the plans of the I-526 West project, the widening of 526, that there may be an issue with this property. So I emailed back and forth with Joy Riley with the SCDOT, and she was showing that parcel as a total acquisition for their current plans. It was to be, that acquisition was going to start in 2022. She said, but if there is development going on there, she can actually pursue an advance acquisition with this owner so they can make plans to take that money and possibly redevelop in another place. So my recommendation right now would be that we defer this so that maybe Ms. Smith can get this. I look back through county records. She is somebody that lives here locally, according to county records, I think in Councilman Griffin's district. So certainly want to help her any way we can. But I think our best thing is to defer this right now, see if we can get her in touch with the SCDOT or Joy Riley in particular. So I would like to move that we approve. I think that, that we defer, and I think Councilman Griffin seconded.
Right. All right. Well, let me ask first whether there was anyone from the public, anyone else who had indicated they want to be heard on this matter.
We have not received any requests for this item.
Okay. And any other comments or suggestions from questions from council? Hearing none, all in favor to defer, please say aye.
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 Opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you very much for catching that, Councilmember Shealy, and trying to get them together. That makes a lot of sense. So back to you, Mr. Morgan, for number 3.
Okay. And we will slide down to the next item. There we go. This is on James Island at 1970 Delaney Drive. It's a request to rezone from SR1 single-family residential to single-family residential SR4, which allows for a smaller lot size. It was heard at the Planning Commission in February, and they recommended 8-0 in favor of it. You can see the property is to the east of Riverland Drive here. This is Delaney Drive, which is a dirt road essentially in this area, and there are a number of different houses here, and I'll show you the images of it. this does show in our comprehensive plan is what we call our suburban edge. So it is recommended for a little bit lower density in that area. This is a plat of the property. Again, Delaney Drive to the south. There's currently a structure on the property that would be demolished and a new residence would be created on the site. This is an image of how that new residence would be created with a 2-story frame duplex on the property. Here are some images of the property, an aerial image of the existing structure, another aerial image of the existing structure, and then a street view of the subject property. And then we have some adjacent properties in the area that are nearby. You see some of the newer structures that have been built in the area are similar to what the applicant is interested in doing on the property. Again, here's a newer structure that's down the street. It's similar to what the applicant wants to do on the property. And we have, let's see, I lost my cursor here. Where did my cursor go? Let's see, here it is. And then that's some other areas of Delaney Drive down the street. So it's a little bit of an unusual situation, but the overall character of the area is unusual here. And given the mix of house sizes and types over here, we felt that this was an appropriate request, and Planning Commission did too and recommended approval as well.
All right. Did we have any public comment on this one, Jennifer, if I may ask?
We have not received any requests.
Okay. Any questions or comments from Councilmember Jackson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will move for approval, but I would like to just ask a clarifying question, and maybe Councilmember Gregory knows as well. But I thought the little hand drawing that you showed us, Mr. Morgan, of the footprint that they're hoping to build, planning to build, did it say something about a lot number 2 next to it? Are they trying to subdivide the lot, or?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, they would be subdividing, and by virtue of this rezoning, they could go with a smaller size lot. And so that's how they would have the ability to subdivide that lot.
They're trying to get 2 building lots out of what is now one larger
Yes, ma'am, because they could go down, they would go from a 9,000 square foot minimum to a 4,000 square foot minimum with the rezoning.
But then they could be a duplex. Each of the 4,000 could be a duplex.
I believe that they were talking about building 2 different single families in the area. I'm not sure if the applicants are attending tonight or not, but that was my understanding, is that there would be 2 buildings similar to what you saw down the street built on this property too. And that's why they needed the SR4 zoning.
I think they're not the
That's the Richardson property, right? This is the Richardson property?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes. 2 structures.
What was that, Councilmember Gregory?
Yes, they want to put 2 structures on it. That's why the 2 lot separation.
And I'm just curious, so is the applicant the owner of the property that's going to, so to speak, keep it in the family, or is this some other development process?
It was my understanding of staying in the family.
Yeah, the Richardsons own the property. It's staying in the family.
Great, terrific. All right, any other questions or comments? We have a motion on the floor. All in favor, please say aye.
We don't have a second. We don't have a second.
Second, Councilman Mitchell, second.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Jackson made the motion.
She
right?
made the motion, correct.
So now we have a second from Councilmember Mitchell. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now for third reading.
Second.
Same motion and second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Back to you, Mr. Morgan.
Okay. We'll go to the next item. There we go. All right. And this is an ordinance amendment on the Daniel Island, in Daniel Island. It's an amendment to the Daniel Island Master Plan to allow for daycare facilities in the Daniel Island General Office Zone District. It was heard by Planning Commission in February, and they recommended approval. And the text of the amendment is here. It's a fairly simple, straightforward amendment. And staff felt that allowing for daycare in a general office zone made a lot of sense. And obviously Planning Commission did as well. And so both staff and Planning Commission recommend approval.
All right, thank you. Jennifer, did we have any requests for comments here?
We did not receive any requests.
Okay. Any questions or comments from council? Councilmember Del Chapo, I presume you're fully aware on this one and supportive?
Yes, I support it.
Move for approval.
Second. We got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now for third reading.
So move.
Second.
Well, wait, I think number 4 is just, let me see.
Oh, you're right. You're right. It did.
Just the first reading.
That's the first reading. I
Yeah.
apologize. That was for first reading. Okay. We'll move on then to number 5. Back to Mr. Morgan.
Okay. And this is an amendment to the accommodations overlay. This is a minor text amendment, but it could have larger implications. Mr. Lindsay was going to speak a little bit on this, and I believe he's at the meeting. Jacob, are you?
Thank you, Mr. Morgan, and thank you, Mayor and members of council. This is an item that you all have seen before, and it is a very minor text amendment to our recent accommodations updates that closes the loophole regarding the definition of full service hotels. This is something that was pointed out to us by a number of applicants, that when we passed our most recent updates, that the language around full service hotels could be construed in different ways. And this solves that problem by clearly defining full service hotel. And it says that there will be no more than 8 of them on the peninsula, and that they are defined as having more than 150 sleeping units or rooms. So it's a fairly simple amendment, closes a loophole regarding the accommodations overlay, and I'll leave it at that and answer questions as necessary.
Move for approval.
Second.
A motion to approve and a second. Jennifer, were there any requests for comment?
We did not receive any.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now, this one.
Move for approval.
Third reading ratification. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. For our last public hearing matter, number 6, Mr. Morgan.
And this is an amendment to the text related to our design review board. It again also went to our planning commission. This was back in October of 2019 and was recommended for approval by a vote of 6-0. And I'm going to pull up the ordinance here, and Mr. Lindsay's going to give a little bit of background on this as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Morgan. So this is an item which imparts to the design review board some of the same advantages that we created at the Board of Architectural Review a number of years ago. First and foremost, it goes ahead and creates a series of 2 positions that are alternates in case there's a problem with the quorum. This is something that's been very successful. It also caps the number of agenda items, so the meetings don't run until late into the wee hours, and it also makes the meetings proceed much more smoothly. And then last, and I think most importantly, it prioritizes affordable housing so that affordable housing items always land on an agenda and they are moved to the front of the line. So this is an overall update that mirrors exactly what we did at the Board of Architectural Review, and overall improves our processing of affordable housing and makes the meetings a little bit more manageable and orderly. So with that, I will take questions.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second.
Okay, so was that Councilmember Shade and Mitchell?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
And again, for the record, I'll ask if we got any public requests for comment.
No requests.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Any further discussion or questions from council? Councilmember Waring.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to thank our staff for digging through, arduous process and making our zoning process a lot more efficient as it pertains to affordable housing. It's been a real good concentrated effort on their part. Just didn't want it to go. I know that whole department is engaged in that. Like, I just want to give them, I guess, a good attaboy. Really good job. So thank you very much for what you all are doing, Mr. Lindsay and Mr. Morgan and others.
Great. I appreciate that comment. Any others? All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now for third reading.
For approval.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. And so next up is approval of city council minutes from May.
Move for approval.
Second.
We got a motion and approved. Any deletions, additions?
Those
Correct.
actually need to be deferred.
Correct.
Oh.
Run that by me again.
Those minutes need to be deferred. We're
Okay.
still working on. Can you hear me? We're still working on those.
All right, deferred.
For May the 12th. Okay.
Pardon?
You're still working on May the 12th minutes?
Yes. We're going to disseminate them probably later this week, but they're not ready to be approved today.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we'll just skip right over that and go to citizens participation period. Could I ask you or Jennifer to give us a report on that?
Well, I have 2 items. I'm not sure exactly how many Tracy may have, but I will read the 2 that I have. The first is coming from Cynthia Nolan at 492 Cessna Avenue. It says, this is really the West Ashley Revitalization Commission meeting that she's speaking in reference to that, regarding the development of an area between Sam Rittenberg and Old Town Roads. Drainage should be contained within the property. Landscaping on the ground and landscaping on the rooftops should contain all rainwater and other water runoffs, so the storm drains do not need to be taken care of for this runoff. And she says, thank you. The second one is from someone named Fred Palm from Edisto Island. Should we or should we not go out to a restaurant where the staff does not wear a mask? The whole reason we stayed home was to stay out of the virus transfer boxes. Council chamber, eating places, nursing homes, offices, classrooms, churches, airplanes, etc. COVID-19 is airborne, in addition to surface transfer. Now that we are implementing return strategies, removal of the virus from the air-conditioned spaces need attention. Air testing, circulation protocols, and standards for the percentage of air it pressures and well-enclosed spaces need a testing focus on air transmission, not just surfaces. With DHEC inspections and too many flowers, bloom variations of COVID-19, unwritten and unposted safety protocols that are being put in place in our outdoors places. If we go airborne, the mask question is trite. If we eat outdoors, it is a material consideration and should be worn. And then he ends with, in all caps, supporting research. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, terrific. Jennifer, did you have any other comments or requests from the public?
We did not receive any.
Well, terrific. So, and we appreciate those comments. I'll just say on the West Ashley revitalization plan for the Sumar Street property, that right now, I bet there's hardly a square foot on there, Councilmember Waring, that isn't paved over. So all of the suggested plans included some water feature and some green areas and a little park area. So there's no question in my mind that it will be much better, an improvement to water retention and handling than what's been on the site for the last number of decades. So it should be an improvement. So that's good. All right, so next we'll go to petitions and communications. First up is the appointment of Tracy Andres as a tourism enforcement officer. We need your approval on that.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next is our brief update as we always meet. I want to give an update on what's going on with regards to COVID-19 and the coronavirus. Shannon's staff couldn't be with us this evening. Mark Wilbert is going to give us a report on that. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, members of council. Just very quickly, one note before I get started, we do have some significant weather moving into the area. That little low pressure system off of Florida is headed up towards Georgia and South Carolina. So we should expect some heavy rain over the next 24 hours or so. Nothing like, currently nothing like was forecasted last week, but just be advised that we are looking for some rain. As far as COVID-19 updates in South Carolina today, as of today, we have 10,416 cases with 446 confirmed deaths. Charleston County, we've got a total of 568 cases with 11 confirmed deaths. 233 of those cases have occurred within the city of Charleston. In Berkeley County, there are 219 reported cases with 15 confirmed deaths. Garbage and trash collection routes remain caught up, and public service continues to run the routinely scheduled routes. Police reported that over the Memorial Day weekend, they responded to 4 calls for large gatherings with no issues with overcrowding in bars or restaurants. And City Fire responded to 3 possible COVID-19 patients over the Memorial Day weekend. In the hotels, there's 49 hotels open in the city of Charleston. As an important note, this morning, or let me just back up a minute, over the weekend, as you know, on Friday, many of our tourist attractions opened up. And we got a brief this morning from Mr. Dan Riccio, and no issues over the weekend. The carriages were running. Buses were very, very, very limited. Walking tours, the same. Water taxis and the boat tours were working, no issues there. So all of those groups had submitted plans to our task force that were reviewed, as well as working with the CVB. So that last weekend seemed to work pretty good for the first weekend back. This morning, we started with a call from Tracy McKee, who had been working with MUSC very early this morning, going over the metrics. We convened our task force, pulled out our guidance, and looked at our matrix, and made a recommendation to the mayor that he approved to move to phase 2. So we have moved to phase 2 based on the data and the metrics. So with that, the permit center this morning was open for visitors, although I will say they've done a remarkable job of setting up the welcome area down there. If anybody gets a chance to stop by and see it, it's very structured. They put a lot of thought into it, working with our safety department. So feel very good about the work that's going on in the permit center. So by Saturday, we are hoping that the remaining city facilities for tourism will be open. They've all submitted plans that our task force reviewed this morning. So we should have all of the city tourism facilities open by Saturday morning with plans approved by our task force as we continue to work through the matrix, reviewing plans, trying to establish consistency, and making sure that we're doing things as safely as we can using data to move us forward. And with that completes my report, unless you've got any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Wilbur? Okay, Councilmember Shealy.
Thank you, Mayor Tecklenburg. I just wanted to, I know you mentioned the rain tonight, the heavy rain.
Yeah.
Do we, and this may be a question for Mr. Kronsberg actually, but I just wanted to check, do we have, I think high tide's about midnight tonight, and that's when a lot of that rain may be coming in. Do we have things prepared for Lake Goddard and, the gates open the right way and everything, I guess?
Yeah, actually, that would be a question for Mr. Kronsberg, but the heavy rain is forecasted to start at 4 a.m. and run through 10 a.m.
Okay.
So hopefully that's when it holds up to, because our low tide is scheduled at 6:08 a.m. and that's supposed to be a 1.6 tide. So if that holds, will be great, but those are only forecasts.
Okay, great.
Great question though. I love those questions.
And I might note that last week we didn't have much of a forecast of that heavy rain we got. So
didn't have much advance notice, actually.
All right.
We'll
Any
keep
other?
an eye on it in the morning and make sure that the gates are all set appropriately, though. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Great. So rest assured that we're going to continue to monitor the numbers closely. Frankly, I've been a bit concerned seeing the numbers come in, the statewide numbers coming in every day. 5 out of the last 6 days, we've been over 200 cases, new cases statewide. And that's brought the statewide average up to, over 200 cases a day, which is higher than it's been for the last month or so. Mm-hmm. So I know Dr. Cole advises, you open back up, you're going to get some cases. We got to continue to monitor it and measure it and just make sure it doesn't get out of hand. And our numbers locally were so low that even a small reading, a small number of new cases makes our percentages look off, so to speak. When you don't have many cases, you don't have much of anywhere to go but up, unfortunately. But it was fortunate to be in that position, y'all. I'm glad our cases were low, but even getting 8 or 10 cases within the city limits makes our percentages go up. So we're going to continue to monitor that closely, as we've already shared with you. And if that trend continues, of course, we'll have to bring it up with you immediately. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll go on to our council committee reports. First up is our Committee on Public Safety, Councilmember Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Madam Clerk, members of council. The Public Safety Committee met to interview several candidates for municipal judicial position. We met over 3 days. We presented a report to the mayor. I will tell you that the number of candidates were of the highest quality of folks that we received, and it was a very diverse group of men and women and minority applicants. So we're very pleased with our opportunity to do that. And I may have overworked my committee, but I do appreciate Councilmember Seekings, Shealy, and Sacred for their hard work and participation in this process.
Well, thank you for that. And I've already scheduled my own interviews with y'all's recommendations, and I'll get back to y'all soon with a final recommendation. Thank you so much. Next up, Committee on Traffic and Transportation, Councilman Seekings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Committee of Traffic and Transportation met today at 1:45. The chairman was late, unbelievably. We had a great meeting. We had reports on the Folly Road at Formosa Drive, Yeamans Road, SCDOT signal rebuild update from the county. That's quite a project. We had Josh Johnson, our District 6 administrator, on the call. He explained what it entailed, but it entailed installing and reprogramming lights at that intersection. It's a slow, steady process, but it looks like it's moving along. There will be a cost share that'll fall back partially to the city, but that amount is currently unknown. We will keep monitoring it, and I suspect we'll get reports along the way. I did note, I think I'm right, that Councilmember Appel, and this sits in his district, sat in and listened to that So any questions I think that he has were probably answered by Mr. Johnson today. We then had a very interesting report on the Meeting Street and King Street Road safety audit, or as it's, and there's a lot going on in those corridors. There's private enterprise looking at it. The SCDOT is looking at those corridors, and they're 2 of 6 corridors that are being looked at citywide for safety improvements all around, but particularly for bike ped. What we heard today, and we will share the report when we get it from Stantec, is that there are some things that need to be done along those corridors, no surprise, which will include signal upgrades, some pedestrian changes, some pedestrian crossing changes, some restriping of turn lanes and the like. But more to come on that. No project currently. They were not, again, sure what timing was on that. I'm sure Mr. Benjamin can fill in anything that I'm missing. We then had a report from the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. As you all will remember, Councilmember Brady had the suggestion that we send the Bike Ped Committee the task of reviewing open streets policy and anything that might be done as we wind on the backside of our shutdown to see if there are some streets or some areas in the city that might be appropriate for reconfiguration or reuse. That is a committee that has got many members. Many of them are new. We had a meeting last week. Everybody was in attendance, and we agreed to meet one more time before we report back to the Traffic and Transportation Committee in June with any recommendations that we might have. The committee was given its homework, and I suspect we will have some suggestions and a report back to TNT and ultimately to council, if not at the first June meeting, at the second June meeting. So it was a long informational meeting. There is no action that is needed by this council, and any of the reports that were given, we will get you information to the extent you ask for it, and then the presentation by Stantec on the King and Meeting Street corridors. We also, by the way, did pick up on a suggestion that the mayor had some few months ago that the DOT that's going to do pavings all over the city, but in particular in the Meeting and King Street corridor, come back and fix some of the voids that were left by utility openings and access points that are currently now very large potholes. So we will attend to that as well. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions y'all might have. I'm sure Mr. Benjamin will be happy to do so as well. So that concludes my report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and fellow council members.
Thank you. Any questions for Councilmember Seaton or Chief Benson? All right, seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you very much. Committee on Public Works and Utilities, Councilmember Ware.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our committee didn't meet today. The acceptance and dedications, as you see on the agenda A1, certainly passed unanimously, and I moved the same for this council to accept.
Second.
All right, any discussion on that? Let's accept a quick claim deed for portions of Bender Street. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Items, Stormwater Management Department, B1, 2, 3, and 4 also passed unanimously. And so I asked for a motion of, I'll move approval on that.
Second.
And if any of y'all have any questions who are not on the committee on any of the grants, anything, Mr. Fountain, you want to touch on any of those for members of council who are not on the Public Works Committee?
I can, Councilman Warren. The first item, very briefly, was the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation grant we've mentioned a few times, which was the design and permitting of the acquisition properties in Church Creek to use as stormwater beneficial use properties. That's $125,000 of federal funds, city match of $125,000 of funds from the Drainage Fund, and some in-kind service matching from Nature Conservancy and Clemson Extension. We also had an MOA related to the King Uji project for in-contract utility work with CWS. This is basically working with CWS where they reimburse us for work they needed to do with their water line as part of our project to prevent issues with trying to coordinate 2 contractors and 2 projects simultaneously, and to get some cost savings from both entities not having to resurface the road twice. The third item was an eminent domain approval for temporary construction easements only. These were properties that revert back to the property owner for about 5-foot wide strips potentially on that intersection improvement project, so we can dig down to access the pipes. And then the removal of the South Market Street. Only the one block from State Street to East Bay Street is the only section remaining in the SCDOT system as we get ready to do the Market Street drainage and streetscape improvement project.
Okay, so I moved approval on that. I think it was seconded by Council.
We had a second. Any questions on any of those matters? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
And Mr. Mayor, there were two items that were added to the Public Works agenda that did not make it on because the City Council agenda had already been completed. Those were, one was a discussion on Belle-Terre. So I think I may need to add those to the agenda before I move forward on it. And one was those two items was a discussion on private gate being on Belle-Terre subdivision. And the second item that was added was a collaboration between the county, St. Andrews Public Service District, and the city to create a park for an area in West Ashley that's kind of blighted. So I move that those items be added to the city council agenda.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you, members of council. The discussion on Belle-Terre was old one that we've had before, where a temporary gate was put up, but it was really a permanent gate. And obviously it's a public road. Probably has the right to have access to it. We have our police, fire, and trash sanitation people going in there back and forth, having to navigate a gate to go ingress and egress. The mayor and Councilwoman Jackson is going to try to have a friendly talk across the table, and they're going to report back to Public Works, which we will come forward to you all whenever a decision is made on that. The second item was an action item. Again, this is going to involve green space money for an area of West Ashley that's been blighted for a while. Now, it is in the county, but it is literally surrounded by city residents. Again, as I said, in introducing it, it's going to be a collaboration between the county, the city, and St. Andrews Public Service District. Mr. Mayor had great leadership on that one, good involvement on that, and I would like you to address the issue a little bit further, if you will.
Oh, well, thank you. And really, County Council Member Moody, thanks to his leadership, brought this to our attention and asked the city to participate in a Greenbelt application, which got turned down by the Greenbelt Committee on its first pass, but is being resubmitted to them with our partnership, if approved by council. There's limited money in the Greenbelt funds for these donut holes that are near the city, but not in the city limits. So like we did with the town of James Island not too long ago, where we acquired a property that's becoming a park, we'd like to partner with the county and St. Andrews. I think it's actually, is it Public Service District on this one? Or
I think so. Yes, sir.
Parks and playgrounds.
Parks and playgrounds.
Parks and playgrounds. Thanks,
and but ultimately there'll be a fire station on a portion of the property that's run by the St. Andrews Public Service District. So really, they're both involved in one way or another, and the result will be a mixed-use development, because a portion of the property is being sold to a developer for retail development, then the fire station, then a park, probably a drainage feature will be added down the road. So anyway, I was approved by a committee. I recommended that we partner with them to the tune of $250,000 of our future Greenbelt allocation, and it was discussed and approved by the committee, and would like council to approve that as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And if you would allow, it's surrounded by Councilman Shealy's district, and obviously a hop, skip, and a jump from Councilman Griffin's district. Do you gentlemen want to have some input? Councilman Shealy?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, certainly. You know, it is a blighted area right now, but I can tell you, and it's one of those donut holes where it belongs to the St. Andrews PSD and the county, but we will get a huge benefit. We probably will benefit more. Our constituents will benefit more and use this park more than anybody, because we are surrounded, like you said, by Councilman Griffin's district and my district. But I also think that it could play a role in some of Church Creek. It's in the lower part of the Church Creek Basin, and we've got areas in that lower creek area that will flood sometimes, in Battery Gilliard and Canterbury Woods, Ashford Place, Springfield, some of these areas. So I think it's going to benefit us in a lot of different ways. And I think it's a great move. And I appreciate the way we've worked with the county and with the PSD and St. Andrews Parks and Playgrounds to make this happen. So thank you.
Okay, Councilman Griffin.
You said it perfectly, Councilmember Waring, that this is West Ashley revitalization. And if we get all the different governmental entities to the table together to work on projects, you can't ask anything more than that. So I'm glad we're buying in. We're showing the Greenbelt Advisory Board and Charleston County, St. Andrews PSD, and St. Andrews Parks and Playgrounds that we're going to be invested and be a partner in this. And this is going to be a great project. It's an eyesore. It's one of West Ashley's biggest eyesores, and it's going to do great things for our area, and it's going to show that we care. And that's an important thing to do. So thank you for your leadership, Mr. Mayor. We really need this west of the Ashley. This is going to be a big win for everybody that lives over in that area.
All right, Mr. Mayor, as you did at the committee meeting, are you going to move for approval on this?
I'll move for approval.
Second.
I was asking the mayor to move for approval.
But as chairman of the Revitalization Commission, I want to take some credit. Mr. Waring.
This is a good one. Everybody's jumping in.
I don't. Keep me to it. That's okay. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I think that's the end of the report. Next is our Committee on Ways and Means. Councilmember Gregory.
Move for approval as submitted.
Second.
Mayor.
All right.
Okay, I just want to make sure make sure that we know that it's also for the first reading to 2 ordinances.
Correct.
Okay, just for the record.
All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Councilman Waring has
The ayes have it. Councilmember Waring.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a question of Mr. Kronsberg. In this report, in this Ways and Means, there's funding to complete the West Ashley Bikeway all the way from Juan to Wapu, and which is a great thing, and I thank everybody involved with that. Believe me, that's funding long waited. Now it's arrived, but there was supposed to be a part where I'm gonna say the entrance is at Wapu and the Bikeway. Mr. Kronsberg, is that part of this?
So that portion of the bikeway trailhead, if you will, at Wapu Road.
That's right, the trailhead. You're right. That's it.
Working with West Ashley United, we had come up with a concept. We were working through that plan, and then the property owners over there of the former market property had come to the city about a couple of different ideas on how to reroute the bikeway and use potentially some city property to reorient their potential development. So we did anticipate having some feature as a trailhead as part of the whole project. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So that will be, I guess my question was, is that part of this funding?
Yes, sir. We would attempt to create a nice trailhead at that point in time. Hopefully we get the grant and it would all be included. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Great. So that's got a certain ring to it, doesn't it? I mean,
yeah.
I think our cousin Arthur would have had a lot of fun with that. We're going to improve that greenway, all green. It's the bikeway, right?
Bikeway.
We're going to improve that bikeway all the way from Wantu to Wapu. All right, bills up for a second reading. We got 2 of them.
Move for approval 1 and 2.
Second. All right, bills up for a second reading. We got 2 of them. 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 Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Now for third reading.
Move for approval.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The ayes have it. So our next, we have our city council budget workshop this Thursday at 3 o'clock. And even though it's, as we've discussed, this is a really critical time for us to be looking into our budget for this year, for 2020, the impact of coronavirus on our revenue and expenses. So even though we have certain of y'all that are on the committee, we certainly welcome everyone who's able to attend that virtually Thursday at 3 o'clock. And then we do also have an emergency city council meeting a little later in the afternoon at 5:30. As I mentioned to you, we would have two meetings this week, today's meeting and Thursday's emergency meeting. And then we're moving to June, and we're just going to have the two regular city council meetings and no more of the emergency meetings, unless of course something comes up that we need to call one. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knew about those. And really there was, that was it for the agenda this evening. Is there anything else for the good of the order? Seeing, hearing none, we stand adjourned, and we'll see you Thursday afternoon or early evening. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.